Playtime by A. G. J. Ruff. Mrs. Tate died suddenly. She slipped from her customary window cleaning position on top of the washing machine, smashed the base of her skull against the gas stove, and came to an abrupt halt as she thudded heavily to the kitchen floor. The body lay at an unnatural angle, staring upward with unseeing eyes, hearing and feeling nothing. Young David hammered his demand for entry on the back door. Getting no response, he sighed, stretched up for the doorknob, and at the same time kicked the door forward with one badly scuffed shoe. Seeing his mother lying on the red tile floor, he frowned. Words such as dead or unconscious had, as yet, no place in his 6-year-old way of thinking. Life, to David, was one enormous game in which everyone, with the sole exception of his parents, participated. He knew that Mr. Diamond often turned a blind eye when he pilfered the occasional apple or orange from the gentleman's fruit stall. Even the neighbours were most tolerant when he trampled on their flower beds or chased the household pets. The only people from whom he need fear retribution were his parents. However, just for once, his mother seemed to be joining in the fun of things. With a sweaty hand, David brushed an aggravating lock of hair out of his eyes, edged round the inert figure, clambered up onto a chair, and helped himself to a glass of cool water from the sink. He turned and looked down, feeling faintly uneasy as he looked into the pair of glassy eyes that glared up at him unblinkingly. David sipped the water slowly. Could his mother be dead? Whatever that meant. He peered down at the faint smile which played around the slightly parted lips of the corpse, and found that it reassured him. No, his mother was playing, and in her present mood she might even prove to be much more fun than most of his friends. David put down his glass and climbed down from the chair. Kneeling beside the woman, tentatively he lifted one of her hands, and he giggled as it flopped limply back to the ground when he let go. Mummy didn't even stir. She was really quite good at games and should play more often. He decided to try something else. Taking the glass of water from its resting place on the draining board, he poured the contents over his mother's face, all the while watching for any trace of movement that might give the game away. None was forthcoming. The water simply trickled across the waxen features, leaving 1 or 2 drops of moisture trapped in the facial hair above the mouth, dribbled across the neck, and formed a small puddle on the tiles beneath the head. The boy leant over and tickled his mother under the chin. The loose flesh vibrated beneath his fingertips. The mouth gaped slightly wider, and a thread of saliva wound its way across the chin and onto David's hand. He quickly straightened up and wiped the sticky hand on the seat of his trousers, shocked and annoyed. He wasn't at all sure about the game or the rules. Surely his mother's action had given him unlimited license as far as his behaviour was concerned. Hurrying into the living room, David searched for and found a box of crayons buried deep in his toy cupboard. Returning to the kitchen, he removed the crayons from their box and started work. First of all, Mummy was provided with a pair of black, misshapen spectacles and a long droopy moustache, and finally a lovely red nose, just like Daddy's. Mummy didn't move. She seemed to appreciate the joke. David couldn't understand how she'd stopped herself from laughing, for the crayon must have tickled her nose. The sewing tin provided David with a pin. To start with, he pricked his mother gently, but finding that this produced no visible or audible result, he plunged the pin home time and time again. He was hungry, and the game had gone on quite long enough already. When he spoke, his mother ignored him completely. Even when he screamed and stamped, she still only stared at him with the same comical face. David opened the drawer in the sink unit and reached for the forbidden vegetable knife. Reaching for the knife, he could feel the blind eyes watching him closely. He could almost hear his mother telling him not to touch it. So he did. Going back to the body, he grabbed hold of his mother's forearm and dragged the sharp serrated edge of the knife across her skin. The flesh peeled back to reveal a glistening network of muscle, tendon, and bone. David dropped the arm and the knife simultaneously, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. His mother was being unfair. He was puzzled and afraid. And when he again saw the glazed, unearthly eyes staring at him, petulance took the upper hand. Crying, he snatched up the knife and drove it two-fistedly down into the offending eyeball. The knife stood quiveringly erect in the swollen socket, adding a final touch of incongruity. When David felt the coldness of his mother's skin and noticed a blue tint creeping into her normally fair complexion, he began to wonder. He heard vague murmurings in some distant corner of his mind, yet nothing would fall into place. Suddenly he stopped crying, sniffed, once again brushed the hair out of his eye, and went into the living room. He had made a discovery. He understood. When Mr. Tate came home from work, David was waiting for him. The boy stood up, smiled, and said to his father with absolute certainty and undeniable conviction, "Mummy's dead."